Hello, all you crazy cats and kittens. Welcome back. Spring break's over, and here we are again. Unfortunately, it's going to be like this for the rest of the year. I know some of you are excited, some of you are disappointed. I'm mostly disappointed. And man, it's not the same without you guys. I'm slowly losing my sanity. And I thought that was going to happen with you, but apparently without you, I'm going to lose my sanity. So how strange is that? So we're back. You guys were turning in and reading over section 3 and turning that in yesterday. So today, being this video being released on Tuesday, you should have done that already. So if you don't have that, make sure you turn that in. Some of you guys, you need to look back on LMS or on the Great Book actually in RenWeb and see what you are missing. Some of you are still missing some assignments. So see if there's anything where there is a blank spot in the Grade Book. That means I didn't get it, or I didn't see it, or maybe I did see it and I just forgot to mark it. So make sure if you have a blank spot in the Grade Book, figure that out. Ask me about it. Hey, did I not do that? Or hey, did you not get that? Or whatever it is. I'm trying to be pretty chill about making sure we're getting assignments. And the biggest thing is just, guys, we got to get them in. I don't want you to have a 0. With that being said, make sure that when something, a housekeeping thing, okay? So listen, a little housekeeping thing. When you are answering these questions, use your book, use the notes and the stuff I've talked about. A lot of you guys are turning stuff in that's not necessarily wrong. It's just stuff that we have not talked about. So like, for example, if I'm asking you about, the spiritual leader of Tibet, and the answer is the Dalai Lama, which is a title, and you give me the actual name of the Dalai Lama, that's not something we've talked about. That's not something I wanted to be that specific about. It means you're just Googling the answers, or you're just Googling it and just finding it and plugging it in. It's not wrong. You're not going to get a wrong, points taken off for it. But what that tells me is you're probably not really paying attention to the answers that you're giving. Looks more like you're just Googling it, finding something and saying, that looks right, and then throwing it at me. So make sure the things that we're talking about on these, the things that your book's talking about, and the things that you're using as answers all make sense and you understand them. All right, so you understand what you're saying, not just like blindly putting something in a blank so that you're like, oh, I hope this is right. Like you're just rolling the dice and, fingers crossed, I hope that's right. No, make sure that you guys think about what you're putting in an answer, because look, I can't be there with you. I can't make sure that you're getting this stuff. So education is a two-way street. You have to, be willing to commit to you learning the right answers, like me presenting you with the right answers, obviously, and I will be, like, I'm here with you, but we need to make sure that you are comprehending this and that you're coming along and finding this stuff. And I think the best way to do that is just make sure that it's all the same. Like, use your book, use the notes that we've been talking about, use these videos. Wikipedia, Google, it can be helpful, but sometimes there's so much information out there that you can actually Google something that you think, oh, this is what he's asking for, get an answer. And if you don't actually know, then it might be something that's totally wrong. Does that make sense? So anyways, off the soapbox. Other than that, you guys have been being really good about turning stuff in, so very proud of that. If nothing else, this has taught us how to diversify our education process. So we've learned new ways to grow with technology and how to grow in education. So there, at least there's that. So we're talking about China, and you guys have been learning about China and its kind of its government and its whole process of how their economy works and how their government works, and how those things are kind of connected together, and the government kind of controls it all. We're going to talk about today is the two countries that are probably most affected by China, which are two of its closest neighbors. And those two countries being a very, very rural country that is actually the most sparsely populated country in the world, Mongolia, and then one of the more densely populated countries in Asia, which is called Taiwan. Now, Taiwan gets a little confusing, and that's actually the country we're going to talk about first. Taiwan is technically not Taiwan. The island is Taiwan, but the country itself, the government of Taiwan calls itself the Republic of China, which makes things super confusing because technically China is two. There's the Republic of China, which we call Taiwan, so we don't get confused. And then there's the People's Republic of China, which is what we all call mainland China. Just, if you said going to China, you would mean you're going there. Now, remember though, Taiwan is still China. Now, the best way that I can think of to kind of put this into your perspective is think about Hawaii. Hawaii is an island off the coast of the United States. Hawaii is the United States, but Hawaii is also Hawaii. Now, imagine if there was some other government movement that took over all the rest of this part of the United States, and the only holdout of the way that of the United States, the way that we know it, the only group that doesn't change to that new group is Hawaii. Okay, so imagine that. So the holdouts being Hawaii and the rest of the United States changes. Hawaii would still call themselves the United States, but they would be Hawaii. Does that make sense? So likewise, Taiwan used to be part of China, but when China's government changed, Taiwan did not. And the rest of the people that did not want the government to change moved to Taiwan. So Taiwan is a holdout of the old way of doing things. It's kind of like the last surviving place. Now, this is a serious problem for the People's Republic of China, the communist country of China, because they refuse to acknowledge that that other country has any serious say. They claim them as part of their own. They claim them as part of the territory of China. And they would like for you to think that it is just a territory of China that China just kind of allows to do whatever. So it's almost like it's just saying, oh, well, we just let them do their own thing, but we could take them over whenever we want to. And it caused a lot of problems for other countries because the United States fundamentally wants to support the Republic of China, aka Taiwan. But in terms of when money starts being exchanged, we want to deal with the People's Republic of China because there's a lot more money, a lot more factories, a lot more things to be done there. So we're kind of on a delicate thing where like, well, do we go with what we agree with from like in our hearts, or do we go with what we agree with in our pocketbooks, right? So the United States kind of has this tightrope between the ideas of these two places that really don't like each other because of some bad blood that went on back in the 1940s. There was a civil war. So I'm going to pull this up and we're going to look at some of this like we did in the last video. Oh, go away, Zoom. So this is what we're talking about here. So this is the area. So Mongolia is second largest landlocked country in the world. It's part of the steppe region of Asia, which goes right across it. The steppe is a treeless plain that goes on and on and on for miles and miles and miles. It's where you will not find a lot of people and not find hardly any trees. So I'll show you some pictures of that. And then let's look at here Taiwan. Taiwan is very technologically advanced, big cities, densely populated, huge economy, making lots of money. It's a small country, but it's an economically powerful country. And they're doing very well for themselves. Now, this is the flag of Taiwan. Now, this flag was used by China all the way up until 1949, when the Chinese were taken over, and the nationalist Chinese, these people left and went all to Taiwan. So the last holdout of the old way of the Republic of China is still found in Taiwan. And they still use that flag that they used to use in China. It's the same flag as before the communists took over, but it's in Taiwan now. So this is Taiwan. It's a very beautiful, and it is a beautiful, actually, the old name of Taiwan was Formosa when it was owned by Spain. And Formosa, I believe, means beautiful island. Don't quote me on that. I think that's right. Who knows? Who knows? Someone knows. I don't, apparently. We'll see if I can figure that out. But yeah, Formosa. So, and the other country that we're going to talk about is Mongolia. And here you go. Here is the Mongolian steppe. Not a lot of trees, right? Most of the people historically are nomads, meaning that they travel from place to place. You know, they don't have a permanent home. So, and these are horse people. They have horses. They make their living. They identify with horses. They have usually many of these herders have many horses, cattle, sheep, and all that. But part of their national sport is horseback riding, archery. They once had the largest empire in the history of the world. It's called the Mongol Empire. You may have heard of Genghis Khan, or as they call him, Chinggis Khan. He is the warlord that made the largest land empire in history, the Mongols. So I'm going to start this off, though, in terms of Mongolia, with something that you probably is going to think is funny. This is a historic way of singing in Mongolia, and it's called throat singing. Now, this guy is going to sing on top of this mountain with a traditional Mongolian instrument there. So listen to him for a second. Let's see if any of you guys can sing like this. Look at him on top of the mountain in the steppe. Yeah, you wish you could sing like that. You weren't expecting that, right? That is Mongolian. Going with that, but that is Mongolian throat singing, and you can look up. Go ahead and look up. Google that. There is actually, believe it or not, there is Mongolian throat singing rapping as well, where they have adopted, like modern Mongolian throat singing, but they've used it to do hip hop as well. So this is a traditional way of singing in Mongolia. It's still around though, and as you can see, this guy. So you're probably not used to that. So I just wanted to lead off with that because that's one of my favorite things about Mongolia is the throat singing. So this, wish I could get this. Taiwan, going back to it. So Taiwan is it's an island. It's about 100 miles off the coast of China. And it is small. It's a small island, but it has a big population. It's got about 23 million people who live there. It's probably more than that now. The book says 23 million people. It's got rocky coastlines. It's got jungles. It's got mountains. But it also has very large, very developed cities, as you can see here in the images. It's not very big. If you want to compare it to a U.S. state, think like Connecticut or Massachusetts. Not very big. Like put together, kind of like New England size, but definitely smaller than the state of Georgia. And it has hot, rainy summers and mild winters. It's kind of like here, not too hot, not too cold. Some of you might think it's way too hot here. I would agree with you, but it's kind of like here. But they have one of the most prosperous economies in the world. For a very small country like they are, they have a very, very prosperous economy. And they have high technology industries. So there are a lot of manufacturing things like cell phones, computers, tablets, watches, cars. They produce a lot of high technology stuff, all kinds of electronic equipment, iPods and phones and computers and tablets and all that kind of stuff. So the book says computers, calculators, radios, televisions, telephones. So many things that are sold around here that are high technology goods they are made in Taiwan. Actually, there is Apple. Apple has factories. So like your iPhones and like all that kind of stuff, your Macs and all that, a lot of that is made in Taiwan. So it has a big influence on a lot of its neighbors because Taiwan is very prosperous. They make a lot of stuff and they have a lot of influence with a lot of the countries that are much larger than them because they can produce things and sell people things, and they're a big trading power. And this really ticks off China because China wants to be the dominant power, and this little bitty thorn in their side, the leftovers of this civil war that they won, are still hanging out there down in Taiwan, and this really bugs them. Now, they will not risk an all-out invasion of Taiwan, but they threaten it always. Now, why would they not just go ahead and knock them out? I mean, China could probably easily take over Taiwan. But the problem is that the risk is that it would incur probably some action on the part of the United States, Great Britain, places like that, because from a fundamental standpoint, they are like us. They have a free enterprise system. They have democracy. They have a free economy where the government does not have total control over it. It's capitalism. It's all a free market. So from a fundamental standpoint, we are allies with them, but we also are allies with China because we trade with them. So it kind of puts us in a weird spot. But they try and always push the limits with China, but they do or with Taiwan, but they do grow things as well. They had terrace farms, so they cut into the sides of mountains, and they make rice and sugarcane, citrus fruits, sweet potatoes, pineapples, tea, soybeans, all that kind of stuff, which a lot of you guys put in your answers. So they do grow things as well, but it has been part of many empires. It was part of Japan's empire. It was part of Spain's empire. It was part of China for a long time. Many of the people are Chinese. Now, there is a Taiwanese ethnic group as well, but many of the people in the 1940s and 50s that moved into Taiwan were actually of the Han Chinese ethnic group. And many of the people who moved there were because they were fleeing the communist takeover of China in the 1940s and 50s. So after World War II, though, Japan gave China Taiwan. And right after World War II, again, you have that civil war that took place where this guy, Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of the nationalists, leader of Taiwan, was fighting against the communist leader of China, if I can get it. There he is. Mao. And Mao there he is, the communist leader of China. Look at him. He's like a god in China. He's like the coolest guy ever to him. His face is all over the national monuments. He's still kind of like worshipped as a human god kind of thing. And you see this a lot in in communist countries where they deify or they make the leader a godlike figure. And in China, very much so, their original communist leader, Mao Zedong, he's kind of made into like a god. There he is above the big portrait of him above the Forbidden City where the emperors used to be and where they used to live, and in Beijing and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times he's portrayed as being like the sun in pictures, which is odd to me. Like he is the sun and we're all in the light of him, in his majesty. It's weird. But you also see that when we get in the next chapter in North Korea. You'll really see that in North Korea because they are just all about their leaders. Again, talking about China, they took over all of mainland China, but they left Taiwan. And about 1 million people moved in from Taiwan or from China to Taiwan. And it caused, a lot of problems there, especially with the people who actually lived in Taiwan prior to that. But it wasn't always very free. I mean, for a long time, the nationalist leader of the Republic of China, Taiwan, Chiang Kai-shek, this guy, he actually did not allow open elections. Like he said, no, that's not, it's not going to be okay. We're going to be in charge. And I think that's probably mostly due to fear of some type of communist takeover of Taiwan as well. Yeah. But he actually fought during World War II. Chiang Kai-shek, he fought off the Japanese. He was one of our biggest allies during World War II. It was us and Chiang Kai-shek and the Chinese fighting against the Japanese. And then after he wins the war against the Japanese, he gets, sucker punched by the communist Chinese who had been basically hiding out during the war, gathering their strength and allowing him to get weaker and weaker fighting the Japanese. And after he defeats the Japanese, he's still very weak. Him and his nationalists were very weak, and they were able to be destroyed by the communists. So let's look real quick at I had a video. Oh wait, I didn't mean to do that. Still learning all this stuff. So I had a video. If I can get it. She never wants to let you do anything, does it? All right, this is about China and Taiwan. Watch this for a second with me.
To China, it's an inalienable part of its territory. But for many in Taiwan, there's a growing sense of national
Say no to China and yes to Taiwan. A lot of nationalism. People being like, no, these communists, they want their own identity.
identity.
They want to be recognized as their own place. They can't officially do that, though. They can't officially be recognized as their own place because, number one, if they did that, that would upset China. And number two, they kind of refuse to be acknowledged as their own place because they, again, it's a matter of that would mean that they're giving up their claim to all the rest of China. And in their mind, they think that they should still be in charge of all of China. Because remember, they're the leftovers. They're the ones that got kicked out. So in a way, they think that one day we're going to win. We're going to come back and we're going to win the rest of China back. So no, many of them aren't content with just saying, yeah, we're just Taiwan now, because they want, it's like the war hasn't actually ended to them. They want to still be able to come back and retake China.
Compared to China, Taiwan is tiny. It's not even 1,000th of China's landmass, and its population isn't even 2% of the mainland's. But while the self-governing island only has 17 countries that officially recognise it, its quasi-nation status provokes intense angst within China's ruling Communist Party.
The Communist Party. They don't like Taiwan,
The uneasy peace that has prevailed since Taiwan split from mainland China in the wake of the country's civil war in 1949 appears to be on precarious ground. Beijing has been ramping up a relentless campaign to try and persuade countries and businesses alike to accept Taiwan is a part of China. And earlier this year, Qantas was one of many airlines who bowed to Chinese pressure to label Taiwan a territory and not a country.
Yeah, they want to label them as part of them. So it's basically like, yeah, they're just part of us. We just kind of let them do whatever. Kind of like what they do with Hong Kong and Macau, right? They're like, you can do your own thing, but you're still part of us. So a lot of it is just kind of like a branding type deal. It's like just a point of pride with China. Now.
So why is China so sensitive about this tiny little island? Taiwan's armed forces pales in comparison to Beijing's military might. And Taiwan's highly developed economy is still a mismatch against the world's second biggest.
China still has a bigger
so the
economy.
global superpower should have nothing to fear, right? Well, not so fast.
Wow.
Experts say the reason Taiwan produces such intense anxiety amongst China's ruling elite is because it represents a vision of what the mainland could be.
This is the important part. It represents a threat. If Chinese people see how well things are going and all the great freedoms that people in Taiwan have, the Chinese government sees that as a threat to their power. And everything China will stop at no lengths to defend their government's reputation. And you're seeing that actually right now, to get off the script, you're kind of seeing that right now with the coronavirus epidemic. You're seeing the Chinese government really refuse to acknowledge how bad things really are in China as a way of trying to save face and say like, oh, it's not so bad. Look, we're fine. They're not reporting the real numbers. They weren't testing quite, like we have been, because in doing so, it would be bad for their image. Does that make sense? So like they've been trying to kind of hide how bad it necessarily is. China again, they will go to they will spare no expense. They will go to any length to defend their reputation, their honor, and their power.
A thriving, progressive democracy of ethnic Chinese. And that vision could be an existential threat to the Chinese Communist Party.
That's really all I want to show you there with that. But yeah, so China is very much threatened by the idea of, a place like Taiwan succeeding. Going back, so we're gonna switch over there now. We'll go to Mongolia. So Mongolia is again a steppe climate. It is a landlocked country, and it is a country of nomads. It's the most sparsely populated country in the world, second largest landlocked country in the world. and it is only about 2 million people. So you think it's got a ton of land, not a lot of people. And it's about the size of Alaska. So, you know, it's not a lot of people. Actually, there's more people in Mongolia than there is in Alaska, but yeah, it's a landlocked country. Alaska's not a country though. So it's covered with steppes, dry, treeless plains. And if you want to see that again, here is a picture of those dry plains that you will find in Mongolia. You know, just not a lot of land, not a lot of people, and of course, not a lot of trees. And this is part of the reason why they had such a large empire in Mongolia. So here is an image. I just want to show you this. So in Mongolia, they live in yurts. Yurts are like kind of like teepees. They're movable houses, but they're circular shaped instead of like triangular shaped. And this guy, Andrew Zimmer, and this show's called Bizarre Foods. He eats weird stuff, and he travels to Mongolia. I think it's good because you get to see the land, and you kind of get to see Mongolian people. So watch this for a second with me. Look at that. That is the steppe. Look at all those horses. Mongolian people. Right across.
This is the steppe, a treeless grassland starting here in Mongolia and stretching the length of Central Asia.
Big. You travel for weeks and not see anything.
I'm here for a taste of living and eating with some of the last true nomads on Earth. We're driving to the fringes of the Gobi Desert, about 6 hours southwest of the capital city of Ulaanbaatar. And I'm traveling with Enki Shagdarguntov, a business
What a name. Wouldn't you want a name like that?
Developer with contacts all over Mongolia.
Well, technically, that is a desert. There's not a lot of water, right? It's what it takes to be a desert.
On paved roads. Most is across open steppe.
All right, we're going to fast forward to the yurt. Here it is. Here is a yurt. Going inside. Here's the family.
Hello. This evening, he's also got a couple of visitors who've ridden over from neighboring gers. Mongolian nomads are famous for hospitality. Any visitor who turns up will be invited in for a meal and for the night if necessary. And every guest will be offered a bowl of Mongolia's national beverage.
That is their national beverage. All right. I don't know what our national beverage would be. Probably Coca-Cola. Definitely in Georgia, our state beverage is Coca-Cola. But yeah, this is their national beverage. It is fermented mare's milk. Delicious.
That's fermented mare's milk.
Fermented mare's milk.
That's right.
Making fermented mare's milk, arag, is a big part of nomadic life. They milk the mares several times each day.
Horse milk.
Then the milk ferments in a big bag of horsehide.
A big leather bag.
Try not to be.
Oh yeah, and you drink it hot, by the way.
Too afraid?
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's really good stuff.
Oh, yeah, but look at the smile on his face.
Yeah.
He's wondering if I can. Interesting. Wow. Sour.
So I love that. So anyways, that is what fermented. He said it's sour. So this guy eats and drinks everything. He's literally, that's his show. And if he doesn't think it's good, then it's probably not real good. But they love it. It's like a hot soured alcoholic milk, and you eat it with these little cheesecakes that are also made out of mare's milk. So, but in Mongolia, you'll see a clash of old and new, kind of traditional way of doing things, but also bringing in some new stuff. You'll see these traditional yurts that people live in and this traditional way of life being a nomad, but they also have like a motorcycle that they ride around. So they'll be herding their horses and goats and cattle and all, but they'll be doing it on a motorcycle. Or they'll be in this little, yurt that is nomadic, but then they'll have a television in there or like cell phones or something like that. So very odd if you watch stuff like this, these people doing this. But there's also a form of wrestling that is popular in Mongolia. If you are into wrestling, I would suggest looking up Mongolian wrestling. It's a type of wrestling. The only rule is the person who loses is the first on the ground. So the idea is to get the one person to get the other person on the ground. If you get him on the ground first, you win. So very simple idea. But Yeah, the people are nomads. Genghis Khan is, the ancient, famous ruler of Mongolia. And actually, Genghis Khan, or Chinggis Khan, as people will say, he he is one of the most, I guess you could say, successful fathers in the world. 8% of all of Asia can trace back their lineage to uh, Genghis Khan. He had that many children. He had so many children that 8% of all of Asia, roughly 16 million people, uh, can say that they're related to Genghis Khan, direct relatives. So just think about how many kids he must have had in order for 16 million people at least to be able to say that they're related to him. So the capital of Mongolia is Ulaanbaatar, and it is located right in the middle of Mongolia. It's really one of the only major cities in Mongolia. There it is, Ulaanbaatar. So many A's. But it's one of the major. A lot of the people live here. I think that something like the majority of all the people, actually, it's where the majority of the population lives, is in Ulaanbaatar. Now, many of the people are Buddhists, but many of the people are also Muslim. So Islam and Buddhism are your two biggest religions there. Mongolia was a communist country for a long time, from about the 1930s all the way until like 1990 something. It was a communist country. Nowadays it is not. It's a republic, and they are a country that allows free trade and free business. But yeah, absolutely, they suffered under communism for a long time. And Mongolia again had close ties to both China and to the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union was around, when Russia was communist. So that is kind of the overview on Mongolia, on Taiwan. Sometimes you see, by the way, if you're into baseball, sometimes you see in the Little League World Series, you see a team called Chinese Taipei or China Taipei. That's actually Taiwan, because remember, they call themselves the Republic of China, and Taipei is the capital of of Taiwan. So you need to make sure you notice those kind of things. So one more thing about Mongolia, though, it is called the Land of the Blue Sky. The Land of the Blue Sky is the nickname of Mongolia, and it is because there are not a lot of trees, and you have all this land, so you got just all this sky. It's kind of like how Montana is called Big Sky Country, and many of the people are nomadic and travel around the country. So I hope this helps you out, and we will be going more on this. I'm going to be sharing some more videos on this and some readings on this. Make sure you do all that. And if you have any questions, make sure you ask me or let me know. I'm going to try and do like a Zoom meetup for y'all's class, but we will see how that goes. I know a lot of y'all don't necessarily have access to devices and all the time, or internet all the time, so we're going to try and see if we can't make that work. But this has been fun. Miss you guys. Have a great day.